Hey everybody, welcome back to
Random Coaster Soundtrack.
In the last episode, I made an original soundtrack for Aquaman Power Wave at Six Flags Over Texas, which you can watch above. But this week, let's see what the wheel gives us. Alright, once again, let's toss up those rules on screen. Alright, and let's give our wheel a spin. 6. Alright, let's refresh RCDB 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Great Lego Race at Legoland, Florida. Alright, this could be interesting. Alright, and let's see what genre we will be working in. Alright, composer's choice. So that means whatever we get, I'm the one in charge of how I want this genre to go. Alright, with all that being said, I will meet you guys back in Ableton, and we'll get this thing rolling. Alright, so here we are in Ableton. I've got myself the roadmap of everything I want to hit. I've got some tempo changes automated in, since I kind of want the racing part of the ride to feel fast-paced and interesting. Now for genre, I'm thinking somewhere like the Super Mario movie that Brian Tyler did, where it's very triumphant and very bright and happy, but also fast-paced, got a bit of a rock edge to it. So I plan on recording some live guitar in for this one, as well as my usual simulated orchestra. Maybe some electronics, we'll see what I end up going with. Alright, here we are in Ableton. I've got all of my drums laid out. So essentially, to keep that drum and bass feel, I've had a drum kit that's played almost as if it was live, but then it's got a bunch of effects on it so it doesn't quite sound as if it's a natural drum kit. And then I've got a few sampled drum fills, which are very blown out and distorted so that they sound very different. So at the beginning here, we've kind of got this kind of chill beat that filters its way in. And then once we get to our drop, we kind of have like a nice 4 count there with some more filtering. And then into our main groove. So this section is going to be during these kind of back and forth up here. So I'm thinking, whereas the drums are still intense like this, I'm gonna have the strings be playing a more staccato, intense feel there, so that it feels like dodging things at a slower speed so you don't hit something and you're swerving back and forth to get out of the way of things. And then as we get to the second half of the coaster, when it starts doing just big dips, we've got a filtered drum fill into a halftime groove. So that's what I've got so far. Next, my plan is to get myself a melody, which I'm thinking is going to be mostly horns, and then probably a few guitars sprinkled in here and there. Okay, so I've got myself a melody, which was a bit interesting to write because the first part, it works in groups of 3 bars, not in groups of the typical 4. So I've got this synth melody right now, and then I'm gonna kind of advance it around the orchestra and, give it some parts, make it more interesting. But right now it sounds like this. then, so now, once we're in those hairpins, we've got ourselves a nice kind of reprise of that theme. Not the full thing, and we do extend it a few bars, but right now it's mostly being featured on the brass, and the first time through really playing into that tritone. So my next plan is to have some sharp staccato, like, strings and such going underneath that, and then kind of give them their own little segment here in these last 3 bars. And then I'm thinking for the dips is where we're gonna introduce some chugging electric guitars and kind of really give it that pump up feel. Okay, so I got a lot of work done within that last gap. As you can see, the orchestration is now finished, so each part is essentially that opening melody that we had on the synth has now just been transformed into a full arrangement. So the beginning, it's kind of sparse, kind of give it like a pump up feel as if you're getting ready to go do something. It's very modern day Epcot-ish and kind of Mario Kart in a similar vein. So once we get that part through, then we have kind of this little interlude here that is playing off of that main melody, expanding a little bit, and just kind of building tension and such while you're up there going around those hairpin turns. And then during those dips, we're gonna go like full rock and roll mode, and we got these like sharp stabs going on. A little bit of string textures there. So as you can hear, by that point, the orchestra is full force by the end of it, full arrangement, all the sides. The only thing left is I'm gonna grab my guitars and my bass and do a couple of passes on those instruments to kind of give it a more rock edge. And then from there on out, it's just an expression pass to make sure everything feels human, and the final playthrough. So I'll see you when all that's done. Alright, and we're back a whole day later. I have now recorded all of the guitar parts, the bass part, and as you can see by certain ones, I have done my automations as well, so I can get my expression pass gone. Alright, so the guitars are just kind of doing generic guitar-like things, just kind of adding some punch, things like that, and then the bass guitar is the bass that I'm going to use for the entire track. There aren't too many low strings, the lowest being the cello. Same with the brass, the lowest being the trombone. I've specifically foregone any sort of tubas or upright bass so that it's just that bass guitar and it can kind of fill out the track a little bit more. So once I'm done with the final mix, you will hear this full track. Alright, so here we are with the final mix down. Over here I've kind of got my brass mixed really bright, so we got a lot of high end from the trumpets. Same thing with the strings here. And then all the guitars have been summed and then given a reverb to sound as if they were recorded in an actual studio instead of my bedroom. The synths have been grouped, and I added this nice little plucky synth sound to kind of dance around the edge of things, just to kind of keep it sounding interesting, a little bit like science fiction-y. And then we've added ourselves a nice bit of like risers and such to hit certain things, And I've done a little bit of voice acting as a crew chief on a radio here, since this is supposed to be a race. So we'll give you a little pep talk on the lift hill and on the way back down. As far as plugins, all of my brass is a mixture between the Century Ensemble brass as well as a little bit of the Sign Berlin Orchestra. As for the strings, it tends to be a kind of a 50-50 split of the Sign Berlin Orchestra as well as the anthology strings from 8Dio. Everything else was kind of either just recorded by me or some other free asset. A lot of these, like risers and such, are just from sample packs. Alright, so now that we've talked about all this, I say we give the track a spin. So, without further ado, here is my original soundtrack to the Great Lego Race.
Alright, don't get nervous. It's just that we practice. Now get out there and win that race. Go, 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 go! I knew you had it in ya. Congratulations.
And another episode is in the books. I really love doing this series. It's really fun to just take the most basic kiddie ride like this one was and give it a beyond intense soundtrack. That is a really fun thing to do. I hope you enjoyed the track as well, and stay tuned for more Random Coaster Soundtrack. Keep on writing and keep on riding.